If you say it's a win-win situation for the Nigerian people, because a lot of interest is being guarded here, and we must be really discerning and careful to be able to analyze it to logical conclusion, because if you look at the National Assembly, or should I say, yes, the National Assembly, who has altered the sequence of the elections, one is tempted to ask, in whose best interest is that? If you say that it's for the interest of the Nigerian people, but people say that it's targeted at some political actors.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I think, and that's the reason why the institutions should be allowed to make their pronouncements. I believe that the National Assembly, I believe that this is personal now, that the decision they took to expedite action and get this amendment in, particularly, or smuggle it within other sections that were meant to be amended, was simply because of some personal issues. I believe rightly that maybe Mr. President was targeted. We all know that once the presidential election is concluded, the usual thing, this is not the first time that the ordering of the election says the presidential election should come last. It happened, I think, in 92, maybe 93, 2011. It had happened before. This amendment they are bringing in, it happened like that. That was the way the elections were ordered. And there was nobody shouting. But what has happened now is the timing. People are reading meanings into the actions of the National Assembly because of the timing. They believe that, oh, Mr. President, by virtue of what has been going on in the country, it's like a lame dog. And now bringing this to bear automatically ensures that, look, once people are sure that, oh, the State House of Assembly, governorship, everything, they are gone, nobody is obliged to vote one way like people normally vote. So that the party that wins the presidential election will win all the other elections in Nigeria.
What do you see, in your view, as being the appropriate sequence such that we don't have that bandwagon effect? I
honestly and candidly as a Nigerian believe that the position of the National Assembly is proper. I believe that the presidential election should come last. That is my own humble view.
In order to avoid the bandwagon?
Yeah, no, once the presidential election comes last, you have a situation. You know, Nigerians then have better options. You have the option to look at it that, okay, now you have the governors, all the governors are from here, this party. The National Assembly is peopled by predominantly people from this party. Okay, let's pick a president that does not belong to any of those parties. And then we can have a mix, a proper mix, where they can really sit down. Nothing goes in. It's not going to be a family affair like we used to here.
So in the long run, it will benefit Nigerians. Let me ask you this, because some lawmakers who think that, they say, wait a minute, this judgment that has been given, there hasn't been any law whatsoever that we have made for them to challenge. These things are in the process. So if it's in the process, how could you rule on a matter like, because we haven't taken any final decision yet?
Now, you know, one of the issues that came up in the case was the preliminary objection filed by the Council to the National Assembly that, okay, the court has no, when you say it's premature, right? It's the doctrine of ripeness. You cannot begin to pronounce on something that's still an ongoing process. That's what you are saying. Now, and you see, the same court that has ruled this way then gave an order of injunction restraining the National Assembly from invoking Section 58. Now, Mr. President invoked Section 58 and withheld his assent. And a court of law said the National Assembly should not invoke Section 58.
Of which they both have rights to
under the same section. I mean, the court had no business saying, oh, well, I'm giving an injunction to restrain you from furthering the process. That was wrong. I don't know the basis for that. Because it does not matter. Even if the National Assembly had invoked Section 58 to now enact the law, if the basis ab initio renders it void, it cannot change. That, oh, because they have now invoked Section 58 to say we are overriding Mr. President, okay, it's now law. So long as the case started, there's an application for injunction pending before you. I mean, everybody knows it, Ojukwu and Governor of Lagos State. Once you have notice of a pending application that you should not do something, if you go ahead and do it, it will be recklessness.
Okay, let's take it from that point again when we come back in just a moment. Don't go away. welcome back. I know the lawyers have said they will challenge it upstairs, you know, but what kind of scenario or events do you see unfolding? What kind of arguments can he possibly take upstairs for argument?
You mean the council
to
National Assembly? Of course. It's clear. First of all, it will essentially be based on their preliminary objection that at the material time when the proceeding started, there was no cause of action. When I say no cause of action, what they are saying essentially is there really any law that is capable of being enforced, such as would infringe on the rights of Mr. President, INEC, or anybody, that it was inchoate. At that point in time, there was no law in existence. That's basically going to be the gravamen of the appeal. Now, I would not attempt to venture into whatever arguments we canvassed because, well, I'm not being paid for that, and I'm sure the lawyers involved will get well paid. My own position, as I said earlier on, is that, you see, you have a situation where the National Assembly, like I said, they have made some amendments to this Electoral Act that are very germane. But because the politicians are solely interested, they all know why they are fighting over the calendar, which is they know that ordinarily, if you have to stand on your own before the Nigerian people today, without depending on a party or on a particular man, a lot of them will be flushed out of the system. So the reasoning behind all these fights in court, like I say every time I come here, when they have soiled their hands, they've dirtied the polity, they go to the courts to wash themselves clean. And today, the side that has won will come out and say, oh, see democracy in action. The side that has lost, oh, we'll go upstairs. Every time the court has to do the dirty job. Now, the Nigerian people are better advised to know that, look, there's nothing wrong in ordering the election the way the National Assembly had attempted to do. In fact, that is my own position. Let's wait for let the last election be the one for Mr. President, so that by the time we have voted, all the other people we see, we can bring in a mix. We can allow them, we vote people in so that they go and fight. They don't sit down and have meetings and decide our fate over lunch and dinner. But essentially, they have said, oh, there was a timetable out there, and look, that timetable is sacrosanct. You can't change it again. That is the basis of this decision. Having said that, there are some other provisions in the amended bill, act, that talks about electronic voting, which created a lot of problems then. Yeah. There is the one about the Kogi State issue, where the man who stood for election died suddenly, and then there was an issue about whether his running mate should take over, and that they brought this new person. All those amendments. Then there is the issue of transmitting data, result and data about those who have been the verified voters. All those provisions, as in, if the data you have transmitted does not tally with the one on paper, the electoral officer will be liable to be sent to jail for 5 years without an option of fine. These are wonderful provisions that I'm hoping that what I've read on media is correct to the extent that what the court ruled on is basically about the ordering. It's not as if that ordering cannot be brought back to there. It can still be done.
Let's look at this in conclusion. What if this was a strategy to say, okay, you know what? Let's look at this. Even if we're going to lose at the appeal stage, let's buy time. So if we get there, because you know the process in the judiciary, it will take time. Right. And before they recover, it might be too late for the National Assembly to come up with a conclusion on the matter.
Well then, it's a possibility. It's a probability in Nigeria. Yes, it takes time to push, except that it will be given accelerated hearing. But accelerated hearing here is relative. I mean, what the court considers to be accelerated may not be accelerated by our own standards here. But it will be very sad for this opportunity to just pass us by. I say this with all sense of responsibility. Nigeria deserves, the democratic institutions are growing, and Nigerians deserve to have the best. Because we are at the crossroad. This is time for Nigerians to be able to choose credible leaders, leaders who will be on top of the situation. And the only way that can be done is in the event that you do not have a bandwagon effect in the electoral process, where people hang on to a particular personality to win elections. Let everybody come out, canvass votes, and let us decide who we want there. It is not that, oh, there is a president, and anybody who says, oh, this Mr. President is good, will win elections. Let that stop.
All right. We have to stop at this stage. Mr. John Jale, a legal practitioner, thank you for coming on today.